rolling.
You want some outtakes?
Yeah, there you go. Roll it.
You want some outtakes?
Go ahead. I'm rolling right now.
We should do an alternate version where it's like contemporary version and 50s version where
Yeah.
let me tell you what happened next.
Yeah.
All right, we good?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we're rolling.
Okay, so during your time in LA, you also wrote for the TV series Fernwood Tonight.
Fernwood Tonight and America Tonight.
Yeah, tell us
Yes.
about those.
I loved working on those shows. First of all, I don't know that anybody is aware, or maybe just insiders, that Alan Thicke produced the show, and he was the brilliant mind behind the tone of it and everything about it. I thought he was just a brilliant writer, and some of the concepts he came up with for the segments and the characters and all of that, it was as if it was in his bones, that whole atmosphere, that everything about it, it just poured out of him. He had complete understanding of what he wanted to do and what he wanted us to do. I just thought he was brilliant. Stiles and Stein, the other writers on the show, everyone that worked on it, it was a thrill. It was wonderful because we had such freedom. What we were basically doing is taking the National Enquirer and all those newspapers and treating them like there was real news. And so we would spend the day just looking for stories, and then do something like that, somebody comes on and says they want their aunt to be a saint. Well, it takes a lot. What has she done? Oh, well, you come home and she makes a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you wouldn't believe, and she whips it up like that. Now, that might not have been exactly what she said, but that was the tone. Oh, wow, she sounds like, wow, she's really something. And we could also make fun of certain things. There was a guy we had on who claimed he had a vaccine to prevent and cure homosexuality. And, we got these great character people to play this, and he's a character. Yes, in our labs, and, we've injected it into monkeys, and it says, well, so Jerry Hubbard, who is Fred Willard, says, well, how do you know when a monkey, if a monkey is homosexual, do they hang out on gay bars? Oh, So, well, where do we inject the vaccine directly into the wrist? So, and we had so much fun because we could make political points. My favorite one, we did a week of shows. It starts with Barth Gimbel.
Well, before that, describe the premise for someone who hasn't seen the show.
Oh, sure. It's a fake talk show. It started supposedly in a small town in Ohio called Fernwood, Ohio, which is where soap, there was a fake soap opera, was Fernwood, right? What was that the name of it? What was the name of it? Fernwood? Whatever. It was set in Fernwood, Ohio. And that went off the air, and then they started this fake talk show that was supposedly local, that you were just watching something as if it was, you were in Ohio and you were seeing this talk show. And then the fiction was that in order to get ratings, they were bought by this fictional network called the UBS and moved to California so they could have all the celebrities on the show. And we said that they come from the city of merchandise in Los Angeles. So it was this fake talk show, and it was Martin Mull as Barth Gimbel, and his sidekick was
Fred Willard.
Fred Willard. And Happy Kine was the band leader. It was really funny. Because it was so small town, and now here they are, and Barth had this extremely inflated personality. He thought he was just brilliant, and he was a sleazebag. And Jerry Hubbard, who Martin Mull played, was really, really stupid and didn't know it, and would say in the most ridiculous things, like, how do you know they're gay? Do they swing on gay bars? That kind of thing. So we had all this raw material with all these great characters and the great setting. My favorite was that it was ratings week was coming up, and they want to give the American people what they want. So we're going to have an execution on the show. We're going to introduce you to who we're executing, and on Friday we're going to pull the switch and execute them, because we know you want capital punishment, and we're going to give it to you. So we did a week of shows. We met the guy on death row. We met his wife, who had a book that she was putting out, and that's all she cared about was selling the book. And Carol Burnett came on the show to talk about it. It was unbelievable, and everyone said, "Are you really going to do this? Are you going to, And when it came down to the final episode, Barth says, because there's some rule against having an execution on television, we can't actually have it here. But fortunately, there's no rule against extension cords. So we're going to have the switch here, and the cord is going to go to the prison. And we explored capital punishment, and we were able to make what I think, because I don't believe in capital punishment. And I guess nobody did who worked on the show at the time. I guess Norman didn't, or we wouldn't have gotten to do this.
So that's Norman Lear?
Yep.
Was he closely involved with the writing on the show?
Not to my knowledge, no. But I think if he didn't like something, he would have said something. But he would have worked more with, it's getting late, Alan Thicke. I think Alan had more interaction with the front office than we did. And anything would come through him if there was a problem.
So one of the most well-known episodes of that was the Save Fernwood Tonight telethon episode.
Funny, I don't remember that.
Oh, okay. We won't need to talk about that one then.
Something, we didn't start the beginning of Fernwood Tonight. We really came in after the first 3 or 4 episodes. So either that happened, or I had a blackout, and maybe it'll come back after the camera goes off.
Well, in 1978, actually, Fernwood Tonight ended and America Tonight started.
Right.
So talk about kind of the changes in the show.
Well, the biggest thing is that we could say we had, that we're now a big-time talk show. We're now in Hollywood. And so we had, Charlton Heston came on the show. And there's some great segments with Charlton Heston. And, so the one with Charlton Heston is great. Somehow, I don't remember the exact setup, but Jerry Hubbard, we ask him some personal questions. None of this nonsense show business questions. Can you tell us about your first sexual experience? And he starts to talk. He opens his mouth. Well, Jerry says, well, if it was anything like mine, you're in the back seat of a car, and all your friends are outside the car, and they're banging on the hood. If you're anything like me, Charlton Heston says, no. But the great thing was that the celebs all played it like they were in a real talk show. And they did it great. What just came to mind is Ali G. You know, that kind of stuff where you have, except our celebrities knew they were on a fake talk show. You know.
Was there a lot of ad-libbing on the show?
Yeah, they did. They did. But what was brilliant about Fred, especially, is it. You know, you have a time you have to shoot it. It has to be a certain amount of time and all that sort of stuff. And your speech has to go. Somebody else is going to speak after you, and that's in the script. So you have to throw the cue so the next person knows how to speak. So if you're going to ad lib, you have to ad lib in a way that you come back to the cue and it's thrown to the next person. Fred was a master of that. He could go off on these tangents and always manage to come back to throw the exact cue. But yes, there was a lot of ad libbing. Those guys, you know, I mean, they're brilliant. Of course. Made us look good often.
You were nominated for your first Primetime Emmy for America Tonight.
Yeah, I was.
How did that feel?
It felt good. I was happy.
And then you actually returned to Sesame Street in 1980.
Yes.
Why did you decide to return to the show?
I was losing my mind in Los Angeles. I really was. I think I'd actually reached a point where I didn't think I was really suited for the work. And I think I went back because I didn't know what else to do. And I went back to someplace that was safe. And it wasn't easy to do. You know, you go to Los Angeles, you go to Hollywood, you know, with Mel Brooks, and the whole thing is, oh, I'm going to become famous and I'm going to be a big success and all this sort of stuff. Now, when you say, okay, I'm going back to New York, emotionally that's hard. Because what am I doing? Am I giving up? Am I a failure? Was I unable to cut it? All those sort of things. And all that may be true, but so what? You know, ultimately, if you're not happy, you go back. But at the time, it was tough. So I didn't do it all at once. I divided my time and did a little bit back in New York and back in LA. And I did that for about a year. 2 months there, 2 months there, you know, back and forth. And eventually made the decision to go back. Fortunately, they said yes, they would have me back. They didn't have a man named Al Hislop was the executive producer at the time, and they didn't really have a head writer functioning just doing that, and I was lucky. They took me back.
So you went back as head writer?
Mm-hmm.
Now, was it difficult to transition from writing for adults and sitcoms to then writing for kids again?
No, the joke hanging on gay bars as opposed to, no, it was not for me. No, because it's my sense of humor, and it was just seamless for me. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the notable episodes and segments on Sesame Street that happened when you returned. In 1983, you wrote one of the most iconic episodes of Sesame Street, Farewell, Mr. Hooper.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your approach to that episode.
Yeah. Before we get to that, I just want to say one thing.
Sure.
I was head writer for a long time, and I wrote some scripts, and we can talk about Hooper, and I'm proud of some of the scripts I wrote. But the writers of that show, all of them, were so wonderful and wonderful to work with. And I don't know that they get enough credit, even though they've won Emmys and all that sort of stuff. And I would hate, I always, I'll take whatever credit I deserve for being head writer and, that kind of stuff. But so many scripts were written and so many brilliant things were done. And they came up with so many wonderful ideas for characters and for new things for characters to do, that my job was to go, yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, let's do that. That was my job. But they came up with it. So I just wanted to say it.
And what years did you serve as head writer?
Well, I was there from I believe I was in the 70s. Before I went to LA, I was head writer for a couple of years. Then I came back as head writer 1981, 82 to somewhere in the 90s, late 90s, something like that.
So did you hire new writers?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What were
many.
you looking for?
First thing was the ability to be funny. A passion for wanting to do this kind of work. Really, there's a kind of silliness, serious silliness going on here. The ability to hear characters and ear for dialogue. But mostly it was the ability to be funny. And somebody's got to have a brain for the curriculum, to understand it. Not to know it, because you can't know it until somebody tells it to you. But the understanding of what we were trying to do, you know, what I explained before, this breaking down of the curriculum into a single bit and being able to translate it. So somebody who did advertising, you know, Sarah Compton was one, brilliant. She was an advertising person. And so she had, you know, this idea that, well, the client wants people to remember X, Y, and Z. And so I have to come up with a segment or some piece of business or whatever it is that's going to be entertaining and funny, but that they'll remember X, Y, and Z. So that's, you know, basically the kind of skill that it is. So that was that. The Hooper segment, when Willie died, we had a choice to make. We could have just let it go and just brought in another actor, or let the character go and just disappear. Then, if we decided we really wanted to tackle it and on the show, well, what is it that we're going to say? So the first thing was to talk to some people who knew the age group. And what we were told was that, first of all, emotions and the sense of loss that adults feel when somebody dies is different than what a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. For them, it's not about the sadness. They don't quite understand the loss in the sort of cosmic sense of loss. It's more personal, you know. And it may be fleeting. You know, it's not going to be this deep sense of grief. Maybe it would be so with a parent. You know, more mystified and more connected because there's more of an emotional connection. So, what do they need to know? Because you can't. What does a 3-year-old need to know about death? What's important to tell them? And so it's the basics. When somebody dies, they don't come back. That's what it means. Well, they did this and this and this for me. Well, let's go. You're going to be okay because so-and-so is going to take over. And, well, I'm angry. I'm sad. Whatever you're feeling is okay. So it's really that. And then they gave us some don'ts. Don't say Mr. Hooper got sick and went to the hospital and died. Because children's parents, loved ones, sometimes get sick and go to the hospital. Well, if that happened and we told them he went to the hospital and died, they may make the connection that, oh no, Mom went to the hospital, she's going to die. So you're sort of putting very limited amount of information in what you do. So I kind of knew what the segment was going to be. I used one thing that I knew that Carol did, and I just learned that, which was that Carol himself, Carol Spinney, who plays Big Bird, draws. And so I used that in the narrative for the segment in which he finds out that Mr. Hooper is no longer with us. And I had already had an idea for a segment in which, again, an idea that I got from seeing Carol do something off camera. And off camera, you know, the way the puppet is done is the hand is up here in the beak, and then there's another hand here, and there's a fake hand that's got a string that goes from this hand to that hand. So when this hand moves, the other hand goes the other way, and it's that. So I'd seen Carol take his beak and put it between his legs so that he was actually looking behind himself, right? And I had this idea that I wanted to do something where an adult sees him doing it. And it's the kind of thing that kids do, and adults will see a kid and they'll go, why are you doing that? And there's no purpose necessarily. They're just doing it because they're trying something out, you know? And so I wrote this segment in which Gordon sees Big Bird doing this, and he says, why are you doing it? What are you doing that for? He said, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Just because. He says, oh, okay. He says, you know what I'm going to do now? He says, what? This. And he walks off camera and he goes, doo-doo, 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 doo-doo. And Gordon looks at the camera and goes, doo-doo, 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 and he goes off. So that was this isolated segment that I just had in my head that I wanted to do. And all of a sudden I realized it would be a good way to put that together with the segment in which Big Bird learns that Hooper is gone, because we had to answer the question, why? And you really can't answer that question. There's lots of, or you have answers for that question. They're either religious answers or all that sort of stuff. But we didn't want to get into that. And so what I did was I put those two things together, and this is an example of what we talked about before. What would an adult say in this circumstance? And given that Gordon had had this experience of Big Bird saying to him, I'm doing this just because, he used that. And when Big Bird says, why does it have to be this way? Gordon says to him, just because. So it all sort of came together, those two things. The other thing that I did was I wanted to have an ending, another segment. So this was done in segments throughout the show. And I wanted to bring birth into this. And so what I did was when Big Bird comes to bring the picture that he has of Mr. Hooper, that he wants to give to Mr. Hooper, along with all these other pictures, the people are, all the grown-ups are sitting around talking about so-and-so just had her baby in the hospital, and she's coming back today, and all of this. And so at the end of the show, Big Bird is at his nest, and in comes this woman with her baby, and they're talking, and it's the last thing Big Bird's, well, one of the things Big Bird says, you know what's amazing about babies? 1 minute they're not here, and the next minute, there they are. And, you know, it's just the opposite. 1 minute somebody's here, and the next minute they're not. And then I wrote it in the script, I said, he hangs the picture on the fence. And he says, I'm going to miss you, Mr. Looper. And Maria says, that's Hooper, Big Bird. And I said, let's leave that there for all time. And so, as far as I know, it's still there.
Were you on set for filming?
No. How was it? One take.
One take.
All real tears.
The episode aired on Thanksgiving Day, 1983. Why was that day selected?
Because they thought families would be together and it could be explained to the kids. talk about it.
What was the reaction once it aired?
Oh, the pre-reaction. I mean, I was on the Today Show. It was a big deal because here you are. You're going to talk about death to 3 to 5 year olds. So it was. I can't remember any negative reactions to the idea of doing it or to the execution and how it was done. I don't remember any. It seemed to be pretty universally accepted as that we handled it well, and we did a good job.
The show actually only aired that one time and was never rerun.
Oh.
Do you know why that was?
Well,
decided?
there is no after that, there's no Mr. Hooper to talk about. There is a book. They did a book, and I think the clips of it may be available on some compilations and stuff like that. But if you don't know Mr. Hooper, it just would have been out of place.
You actually won a Peabody and a Daytime Emmy for the episode.
The Emmy, yes. Peabody went to the show.
To the show.
Right. And I have that at home.
Very nice.
Somewhere upstairs.
The Daytime Emmy is also named it one of the 10 most influential moments in daytime television. How does that make you feel?
Humble. No, it really does. I'm very proud of the show, the producers, the actors, for making the decision at the time to do this, for helping the research department, everybody at the time, for doing this in a way that enabling it to be what it was. It was simple. We were able to do it in a very simple, straightforward, direct way. The other part of this is the actors really, there were tears. Those were their real tears because they were talking about Will Lee. And I was really happy that we did it because of Will. Because it's exactly the kind of thing Will would have wanted done. He so believed in the show and the good it could do. And so he would have said thank you, I think.
All right, let's stop there and take a break.
Okay.